Hi, friend. Just in case you're new here, I am Cheryl. I am from sunny Florida, go Gators, and I absolutely love the beach. Pretty beaches in Florida. Yes, we do have. I am a minister, a best-selling author, and a certified Christian life coach. And I wanted to personally invite you to visit my website, CherylThomas.co, not .com, CherylThomas.co. On there, you'll find a myriad of resources just for the Christian woman of faith who is ready to delve deeper into the things of God and also ready to understand and uncover God's specific purpose for her in a community. And speaking of community, I'd love for you to join our community, the B Club Inner Circle. It is a powerful and impactful and a fun group of women 40 plus who have learned that we can lead happier lives on the other side of 40. That life doesn't stop at 40. We'd like to think that it's just beginning. We would love to have you partner with us as we seek to do God's will, as we seek to develop and to build great, fulfilling community among Christian women so that we can love ourselves, invest in ourselves, value the voice that God has given us, and experience big fun. Also in the community, you will have access to discounts that aren't available anywhere else. You'll also have access to our in-person member-only meetings, and we're cooking up something really exciting for the future. Think beach, think sands, think fun. And so if you want to be involved or a part of this thriving community of women, I look forward to seeing you on my website, www.CherylThomas.co. It's going to be a blast. Take my word for it. You don't want to miss it. See you soon. Hey, everybody. Welcome. I am so glad that you are here on tonight. Happy Tuesday. Happy Thanksgiving week. I know some of you may be preparing for this Thursday, getting all those ingredients done, and hope you got your shopping already done. But I'm so glad to be with you here on tonight. If you do not know who I am, or if this is your first time joining, my name is Cheryl Thomas, and I am a minister, a speaker, best-selling author, and a digital media and publishing strategist. And I am geeked about our Bible study series that we have just begun on last week. So you're not too late. You're okay to be joining in now. But I'm excited about diving into the word of the Lord together with you, where we can share what we know, we can share what we are learning, we can increase our learning. And on this week, we're going to be talking about God builds a nation. And if you missed us on last week, we are in the beginning of a 31-week study called The Story. And I'll go ahead and I'll put that up there. It's the story. Read the Bible, read the story, experience the Bible. And so we'll be going through that for the next several months. And there are 2 books that you'll need to join us in on the story. You don't have to have them, but I promise you will want to have them. One is the actual Bible version that has all the excerpts of the scriptures that we'll be reading through the entire Bible. And the second one is the study guide. There's a QR code up there for you that will take you directly to the link to purchase them. Both of the books together are under $20 for both of them. So I do encourage you to go ahead and grab those. We'll mention that that is an affiliate link for me. So that means that if you purchase the book using that link, that means I will get a small commission at no additional charge to you, but it helps us continue to do the podcast and to curb the expenses that go along with that. So welcome. All the preliminaries are out of the way except this one. If you have not already, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and like and share. If you're on Facebook, share this with somebody. If you are on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like button so that more people can experience the word of the Lord. And also, if you are jumping on, I want you to say hello. Hey, Lady Seals, thanks so much for joining. Yes, say hello to me in the comments so that I can know that you are here and that I can greet you properly. So thank you all so much for joining. What I like to do and what I'll probably do at the beginning of every session is what you'll notice about this study is it gives you a quiz before you join the study to see what our knowledge is of the particular lesson before it. Because I don't know if you're like me, sometimes I think I know more about a particular Bible story, a particular Bible character, or an incident in the Bible than I really do know. Because sometimes maybe I've glossed over a text, I didn't read it in depth, or maybe sometimes it's been a long time since I have read or understood a particular piece of text. So this is going to give us a good deep dive into that. Hey, Lady Sylvia, thanks so much for joining this evening. So we're always going to start out with a quiz. And so we'll go ahead and jump into that quiz. I'm going to ask you to participate in the comments for me. And like I always say, never be afraid to be wrong. We are here to learn. I do not consider myself a Bible scholar. I am just walking in obedience to God, doing these Bible studies that I'm doing. And so I am learning with you. I know when our church first went through this, we would always be surprised at the beginning of these lessons when we would take the quizzes and we'd have so many wrong. We'd be like, wait a minute, I thought I knew that story, but I don't know that story as well as I thought I would. So we're here to learn. We are not here to prove our expertise. We're not here to judge anyone. We're here to learn and to grow together. And so we're going to jump right into our trivia for this evening. And so I'm going to pull up our trivia questions. Let me get them real quick. I'm going to pull up our trivia questions. Like I said, I want you to respond in the comments your answers. And so our first trivia question, and just to preface this, we are on the story of Abraham. Abraham is going to be the focus, and his family, the focus of our lesson on tonight. So the first question is, what was the promise God gave to Abram? What was the promise God gave to Abram? Was it A, I will give you long life? Was it B, I will give you countless offspring? Was it C, I will give you great health? Or was it D, I will make you wealthy beyond measure? Put the letter of your answer in the comments. And I'll go over them again. A, I will give you long life. B, I will give you countless offspring. C, I will give you great health. Or D, I will make you wealthy beyond measure. What was God's promise to Abram? And like I said, don't be scared. Just go ahead, and if you don't know it off the top of your head, or if some of them sound like maybe this one could be it, or maybe that one could be it, just go ahead and drop your answers. All right. Lady Barbara and Lady Sylvia both said B, I will give you countless offspring. So that's the question for question 1. So let's go to question 2. And those of you that may even be watching this on the replay, I want you to answer these questions too, because at the end of the lesson, we're going to go through all of the answers. So we're testing our skills and our knowledge before we go through the lesson. So question 2 is, Why did God choose to spare Isaac's life from sacrifice? Why did God choose to spare Isaac's life from sacrifice? Was it A, Abraham pleaded with God to spare his son's life? B, Isaac was willing to go through with it? C, another sacrifice was made available? Or D, Abraham feared God? Which one of those? A, Abraham pleaded with God to spare his son's life. B, Isaac was willing to go through with it. C, another sacrifice was made available. Or D, Abraham feared God. Okay, I have Lady Barbara coming in with D. Anybody else want to drop in your answer? Which one of the four is the answer for question number 2? Like I said, don't be scared. Go ahead and drop that answer in, and we'll find out at the end of the lesson. And Lady Sylvia comes in with D. Now I see I have other people on here. Y'all don't be scared. Put your answers in here. Nobody's gonna say anything. Like I said, we're here to learn and to grow together. All right, so let's go to question number 3. Question number 3 says, when Jacob wrestled with the man through the night, what did he want from him? What did he want from that man that he wrestled with? Was it A, he wanted the man to simply let him go? Was it B, he wanted the wealth the man possessed? Was it C, he wanted a blessing from him? Or was it D, he wanted a promise of safety for his family? What did Jacob want from this man that he wrestled all night? A, he wanted the man to simply let him go. B, he wanted the wealth the man possessed. C, he wanted a blessing from him. Or D, he wanted a promise of safety for his family. Hey, Lakiria, thanks so much for joining. Hey, Lady Takesha, thanks so much for joining. I see all C's from Lakiria, Lady Takesha, Lady Sylvia, and Lady Barbara. Everybody says C for that one. Awesome, awesome. And so let's jump to our last one. Our last question, question number 4 is, why did Jacob send his flocks and herds to his brother Esau? Why did he send his flocks and herds to his brother Esau? Was it A, he wanted to find favor in Esau's eyes? B, he knew Esau was in need? C, they were Esau's flocks and herds and he was returning them? Or D, he didn't want to be a shepherd anymore? Why did Jacob send flocks to Esau? Again, I'll repeat them. Was it A, he wanted to find favor in Esau's eyes? B, he knew Esau was in need? C, they were Esau's flocks and herds and he was returning them? Or was it D, he didn't want to be a shepherd anymore? What's our answer to question 4? Drop them in the comments. All right, I have A from Lady Barbara, A from Lady Sylvia. What does everybody else think? Why was Jacob sending all of those flocks in droves and in cycles to Esau? And feel free to drop those in there. Remember, I'm going to give the answer to these questions at the end of our lesson. So you'll have to hang on to the very end to get the answers for it. But we will make sure that we get the answers. And before I jump into our video teaching, I did want to just preface the story that we're getting ready to walk through. The story of Abram to Abraham and Sarai to Sarah. What a pivotal story that is in the Bible, and how foundational it is to our faith. So even as we go through, it's about a 11-minute video that we'll be able to walk through. I want you to be intently listening. If you do already have the study guide with you already, there's some questions in there so that you can take notes that we'll briefly go through as well as we end. And then I'll end with some observations that I'm pulling from the lesson, and I want to hear yours as well. But now I'll go ahead and load up our lesson. And so be sure to be listening, have your listening ears on as we go through it.
This is your story. This is my story. But most of all, this is the greatest story ever told. This is God's story.
The Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." So Abram went, as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. "Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward." But Abram said, "Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless, and the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus?" And Abram said, "You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir." Then the word of the Lord came to him, "This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir." He took him outside and said, "Look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them." And he said to him, "So shall your offspring be." Abram believed the Lord, and he credited to him as righteousness.
You know you're old when it takes you a couple tries to get over a speed bump. You know you're old when it takes you longer to rest than it did to get tired. When a 30-year-old mortgage sounds like a pretty clever scam. When your best friend is dating someone half their age and isn't breaking any laws. You know you're old when you discover the meaning of life, but then you forgot to write it down. You know you're old when you often repeat things. You often repeat things. You often repeat things. You know, age has a way of sneaking up on all of us eventually. It can leave you with that sense that the best of your life is behind you. Maybe it's not age for you, but just that sense that you missed out on your chance at life to fulfill your dreams or to do something really meaningful. Well, if that's how you feel, chapter 2 of the story is going to be really good news for you. There's a noticeable pattern with God in the Bible where he picks the person to help him with his plan to get us back, who in the lower story sees themselves as the least qualified person for the job. In chapter 1 of the story, God unveiled his vision. He simply wanted to come down into the lower story, which he created, and be with us. But the first people, Adam and Eve, didn't embrace that vision, and as a result, were escorted from the garden. A spiritual virus was born in Adam and Eve that creates the option for evil and selfishness in our lives and our relationships with others. This kind of lifestyle has no place in the community of God. We also learned that this spiritual virus, which the Bible simply calls sin, is transmitted to all of Adam's offspring. That means us. We found in the story of Noah that the plan to get us back into a relationship with God will not come from people, not even from the best of us. So God begins to unveil his plan in chapter 2 to get us back. He's going to create a brand new nation. Why? Through this nation, set apart for his purposes, he will reveal his presence, his power, and his plan to get us back. People of all nations who watch this new nation will be able to discover and see what God is up to. So the first order of business is to pick a couple to get this nation started. Now, who would you pick? A young, vibrant, good-looking, healthy, influential couple with a medically proven capacity to crank out lots of children? That's how we think in the lower story. But God thinks differently in the upper story. Later in the story, Isaiah will tell us that his ways are higher than our ways. God selects an old couple named Abram and Sarai. When God first taps them on the shoulder, Abram is 75 and Sarai is 65. They've got their AARP card in hand, discounts at Denny's for the early seating, and collect Social Security checks monthly. In addition to this, in addition to their age, Sarai is barren. She can't have any children. Why does God pick them? He does this so when people see this great nation, they will see not the strength of Abram and Sarai, but their weakness. They will see God as the one above the scenes of their lives, building this amazing nation. They will see his presence. They will see his power and his plan unfolding. At the opening of chapter 2, God invites Abram to go and leave the comforts of his homeland to a place that God would show him. And he promised to not only give them children, but to make them into a great nation. Not only this, but this new nation would one day be a blessing to all people on the earth. Abram likely didn't comprehend this completely, but God was saying to him, I'm going to use you and this nation as my plan to provide a way for all people to come back into the garden. The Bible simply says, so Abram went. In Hebrews chapter 11, we are told, by faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. Now, there's one thing I know about senior citizens. Being the proud possessor of my own AARP card, we don't like change. How many senior citizens does it take to change a light bulb? Change. Who said anything about change? But this older couple dug deep, got way out beyond their comfort zone, and believed in God. This is their only claim to fame. The story doesn't unfold as smoothly as you'd think. The first order of business is to start popping out kids, right? To have a nation, you got to have peoples, at least one. That's logic to us lower story dwellers. Yet 10 years go by and still no children. Abram is now 85 and Sarai 75. So Sarah gets to thinking, maybe God needs our help. That phrase always leads to disaster. She concocts a plan where Abram sleeps with her servant Hagar. Abram, as suspected, puts up no objections. They have a child named Ishmael. God comes to them and says, I will make Ishmael's offspring into a great nation, but this is not my plan. Ishmael is the father of the Arab nation and the foundation of Islam. 13 more years go by and still no child. Abram is now 99 and Sarai 89. God comes to them and changes their names. Abram's name, which ironically means father in Hebrew, is changed to Abraham, which means father of many. Ouch. Sarai's name, which means princess in Hebrew, is changed to Sarah, which means queen. Ouch. Hard names to live up to. Finally, a year later, Sarah has a child who's named Isaac. Isaac means laughter. You would laugh too if you had a child when you were 100 years old. But the story isn't over. When Isaac is around 15 years old, just about to get his camel's license, God comes to Abraham and asks him to do a crazy, I mean completely crazy thing. Abraham is now 115 and Sarah 105. Optimal years for raising teenagers, wouldn't you say? Here's how it reads. God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. You know, I'm just the average Joe trying to get by in the lower story, but this seems completely insane. But Abraham obeys. We're told in the story, or in Hebrews chapter 11, that Abraham figured that God would raise Isaac from the dead. Now that's faith. As Abraham was bringing the knife down to take the life of his son, an angel, likely Jesus himself, told Abraham to stop. That God has provided a ram whose horns have gotten caught in the thicket. Abraham sacrifices the ram and takes his son home. Whew, that was close. Well, we are told that Isaac gets married to a gal named Rebecca. Listen to this. They are married 20 years before they have their first child. This nation-building thing is really off to a slow start. But they have twins, Jacob and Esau, and we're told that Jacob has 12 children. Finally, we've got some real momentum. You think you're too old? You think you've missed your chance to do something big, something significant? That's the way we think in the lower story. But if we align our lives to God and what He's up to, some of our best years are still ahead of us. Oh, one more thing you may have noticed. Embedded in this incredible story is a clue of what is to come. In the story, God said to Abraham, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." Compare this with John chapter 3 and verse 16 of the New Testament. "For God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son." See the parallel? But not only that. Do you know where the hill of Moriah is? 2 Chronicles chapter 3 and verse 1 tells us that it is the place that will later become the city of Jerusalem. It is the same hill 2,080 years later that God's one and only Son, Jesus, would be offered up as a sacrifice on a cross.
I hope y'all enjoyed that. I always love the way he teaches the simplicity of learning the Word and learning the Bible. And so I want to pull just some things that I pulled from that. And I want you to let me know in the comments some of the things that you pulled from that whole lesson of Abraham, one of our fathers of faith, and that teaches us what it means to really trust God, what it really means to believe God, no matter what. I know one of our study questions in our study guide talks about if you were in Abraham's, and it calls it sandals, what would be the biggest challenges of being asked to move to a new land? How would let's put ourselves in Abraham's shoes. How hard would it be to, number one, hear a voice that you believe to be God after growing up in a pagan nation who served many gods, and to hear the voice of the one true God that says, "Go to a land that I will show you." You don't know where you're going, but you're just following that voice. You're just following that unction to go, to head out, to, pull your family together. The Bible talks about how he got his wife and how he got Lot and all of their possessions and all of the people that he had accumulated while he lived in Haran, and to move to a place that God would show him. Would that be difficult for you? I want you to let me know in the comments. Would that be difficult for you? I know for me that would be hard because I am a planner. And I kind of like to know where I'm going, especially if I'm going somewhere that I've never gone before. I'm going to pull up Siri. I'm going to pull up, Google Maps. I'm going to look up, the terrain. I'm going to do all of that. I remember when we were traveling a long time ago, our church used to travel a lot on different engagements. We'd go to different cities and different states, and we would go in these quote unquote caravans, and it would be 10, 20 cars of us traveling somewhere. And my late Uncle Earl was always like our navigator. And he would have his trusty AAA maps, and he would have mapped out the entire route for us. He would know where all of the rest stops were, where all the restaurants were, where all the shopping places were. He knew everything about every city that we would have to go through to get to where we were going. And that's been kind of, how I was raised to map things out and to plan things and to not have surprises or to minimize the surprises. And so for me, when I do not know what to expect, I can sometimes get anxious. Is that just me? Am I out here by myself? And so for me, Y'all let me know if I'm by myself or if you are like that as well. Put in the comments, I'm like that too, or no, I'm not like that at all. If God says go, I'm just gonna go, and we're gonna go with the flow. Let me know if I'm the only one like that. So that was one of the things that stood out to me, the great faith that Abram had to just be able to hear the voice of God and to pick up everything and to go somewhere. And it also talks or speaks to the faith that his family had in him. To, just say, okay, if God told Abram to go, then we're all going. And to pick up and to go. So that was one of the things that stood out to me. That would be a big challenge, is mustering the faith that is necessary to walk into the unknown, knowing and trusting that the voice of God that told me to go would be the same voice of God that would be with me along the way. And so let me know how you all feel as well. Thank y'all for saying I'm not the only one. Lady Barbara says, no, I am not alone. Thank you. Thank you. And Lady Sylvia says that she would be very anxious. Like, give me a sign. Just I would be Gideon in this scenario. I'd be like, I need to fleece you. Make this fleece wet and this land dry. It'd be a whole scenario that I'd have to go through. But yet to the faith that took, it astounds me every time I read the story of Abraham. One of our second questions says, what do you learn about God from the way he takes care of Hagar and Ishmael? What do we learn? And one of my biggest takeaways from the way that God took care of them, even when he told Abraham to let them go, that Sarah was right, and to let them go, was the way that God cared for them. Even though the way that Abraham and Sarah went about in their own eyesight, securing the heir for Abraham, when that is not what God said. God said that the heir would come through Sarah, but how they did their own little workings out was how God still made sure that Hagar and Ishmael were safe, how he still spoke blessings and promise over Ishmael, saying that, God would make him a great nation. And we later learned that he also had 12 sons. And just to see the care for that. And this let me know something about God, is that God doesn't just love the people that I love. I want to say that again. God doesn't just love the people that I love. He doesn't just take care of the people that mean something to me. That means that God loves my enemies. I want that to sink in. That God loves the people that I don't care much for. That God loves the people that hurt me. That God loves the people that misused me. Because one of the reasons why Sarah wanted them to go was that Ishmael had started mocking Isaac. And so she was not happy. And she said, no, this boy will not have any part of the inheritance with Isaac. He will not. Send them away. So God loves and cares for people that we don't love and that we don't care for, or that sometimes we have trouble with, or sometimes, we get into little quibbles and, quarrels with. God still loves them. And so it makes me be very conscious of how I treat people that I may not have a preference for, how I treat people that may have mistreated me, understanding that the way God feels about them is not the way that I feel about them. The way I treat them is not the way that God is going to treat them. So that when I look to see other people prospering that I have questions about, I can say, well, hey, they belong to God too. We are all his children, whether we do right or whether we do wrong, whether we are living correctly or not. We are still God's children, and he's going to take care of his children. And so I leave all of that to God. So let me know how you all feel. What were some of the insights that you see from the way that God treated Ishmael and Hagar when they were put out of Abraham's camp? Let me know in the comments how you all feel about that too. And one of the last questions that I want to talk about is, it says, what was the most difficult thing for you to understand about the story of Abraham's sacrifice of Isaac. Now, and I'm going to be transparent. Every time I hear the story or I think about the story of Abraham and Isaac, I'm always a little uneasy about that story, because here are some of the questions that come in my mind. And y'all let me know in the comments if you all think about this too. The first question is like, why? God, why would you ask him to do that? Why would you have him wait 25 years for this promised son to only tell him that he had to sacrifice his son? And I know that the word tells us that he was testing Abraham to see if Abraham really loved him. But I was like, can we get another test, Jesus? God, can you test me in another? Making me think, or making the thought may come to my mind that the very thing that you promised is the very thing now that you're asking me to give up. So that has always been one of my questions about that whole scenario. And I told one of my pastor friends, one of the other things that always makes me think about this scenario is, what was Isaac's mind frame or mindset during this whole scenario? Because I believe they said at the time, Isaac must have been 14, 15 years old. So it's not like Isaac is 3 and doesn't know what's happening. And it's not like Isaac hasn't seen this done before. He has gone to worship and to sacrifice with his father before, which is why he asked, where's the lamb? We going to worship. We going to sacrifice. We have wood. We have fire. We don't have a sacrifice, Father. And so, like, what was his mindset? Number one, asking that question and then getting up there. And the scripture says, and I wanted to read it, and I put it aside because I wanted to read this in your hearing. And let me just pull it real quick because I wanted to read this. And it says, when they reached the place God told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. So in my mind, I'm thinking, what could have been Isaac's frame of mind after they get there? There is no lamb, and his father begins to tie him up and put him on this altar. And not just put him there, but raise his hand to slay him. That just always makes me think, not just the faith that Abraham had, but the trust in his father that Isaac must have had to have too. Because then we learn later that it says Abraham believed that God was able to raise his son from the dead. He never stopped believing that Isaac was still the promised son, that he would still be one of the ones that would be the progenitors of this nation that God was building, and that even if he sacrificed his son, that God would make him come alive again. What faith? What faith to trust and to believe, Lord, anything that you take away, that you can resurrect. That what I am offering to you is not the end. It is only the beginning. That I know that you are sure to your word, and your word said that Isaac would be the source of this nation, that I would start the nation and it would go through Isaac. So surely if you're asking me to offer him, surely you will raise him if you cause me to do it. Now, if that ain't faith, y'all, that's faith on a different level, trusting God through every step, trusting him when it does not make sense. And so I want to go through my last observation. And it's one of the questions that says, is there something that you need to do based on what you have learned from this story? And one of the things that I know that I need to learn, and that is to trust God when it doesn't make sense. It did not make sense that God would ask Abraham to offer Isaac. That did not make sense. That would go that way. It did not make sense that Abraham would believe and trust that God would resurrect his son. And so to believe God against all odds. It did not make sense that God would choose a couple 75 and 65 and then say to them, you're going to be the father of many nations, that you are the father of many. When he renamed, Abram, from Abram to Abraham, and Sarah to, Sarai to Sarah, that he was calling them forth to a nation. It didn't make sense that he was 100 years old and had his first son, and then that son had two boys 20 years later. It did not make sense that these three people were going to make a nation. But how sometimes God causes us to have to trust him in the small things. The word that tells us, do not despise the day of small beginnings, because the Lord delights to do the work in you. The Lord dislikes to see you begin the work. That's the correct way to read that scripture. The Lord delights to see the beginning of the work. So do not despise the day of small beginnings, because the Lord delights in seeing you begin the work. All God is asking us to do is to begin the work, to trust him enough to begin the work, and to leave the how to him, to leave all of the provision to him, to leave all of the details to him. I'm going to trust you, God, with the vision that you have. And so I'm going to just, lay aside all of my fears, lay aside all of my anxieties, and I am going to walk with you. I am going to trust you, because your word says, he that hath begun a good work in you will perform it. So I don't have to perform. I don't have to do the work. All I have to do is stay true to the vision and listen for the next step. Listen for the next thing that you tell me to do. So, and as I am waiting, just continue to do that first thing that you told me to do well, as I listen for the next instruction. Like Abraham took that first step. He had Isaac laid on that altar and he was getting ready to do it. And then he heard another set of instructions. So I always have to be mindful to keep my ears open to the next set of instructions, because they may disrupt that first set of instructions, because he had to stop and say, hey, there's a ram in the thicket. That will be the sacrifice. And now I know that you trust me. Now I know that you believe me. And now I will perform my word to you. I hope this has been a blessing to you all. And I want to still get your feedback in the comments. Let me know what you're thinking, how you're feeling. And we're going to go over, I always said we're going to go over the 4 questions that we had at the beginning. And I may try to keep record of this, and maybe periodically we'll give out, some prizes and some awards for the people that actually always participate in that. Because what I want is, I'm not looking for right answers. I'm just looking for participation. And I believe that's the heart of God. It's not looking for you to be right. He's just looking, are you willing to participate? Are you willing to try? Are you willing to learn? And so we'll give, it won't be who got the most right answers. It will be who participated, who came, consistently and participated for us. So I'll be, keeping an eye out on the comments. And don't worry, even if you're watching on the replay, I want you to go ahead and put your answers in there too, because I'm going to be looking at participation. And you never know, just like God, at a time that you think not, it'll be reward season. And so I'm going to go over the questions. Our first question was, what was the promise God gave to Abraham? And the answer to that was B. And I think just about everybody got that right. B, I will give you countless offspring. He told him that his seed would be like the sands of the sea. So that answer was B, I will give you countless offspring. Question number 2 says, why did God choose to spare Isaac's life from sacrifice? And that answer was D, Abraham feared God. God told him right after, now I know that you fear me. So that was the answer. D was the answer for number 2. Number 3 says, when Jacob wrestled with the man through the night, what did he want from him? What did Jacob want? And that answer was C. He wanted a blessing. Remember, he said, I will not let you go until you bless me. So that answer was C. He wanted a blessing from him. And the last question, number 4, says, why did Jacob send flocks and herds to his brother Esau? And the answer to that was A. He wanted to find favor in Esau's eyes. He had stolen Esau's birthright. He had stolen Esau's blessing, and he wanted to make sure that Esau was okay. And so in segments and in droves, he sent all kinds of gifts to Esau to win favor in Esau's sight. And then when Esau saw him and then came and embraced him, he was so happy to see him. So again, thank you all for joining me on tonight through our study on the story. We did Abraham on tonight, and on next week we will be going through Joseph. One of my most favoritist Bible stories is the story of Joseph, from slave to deputy Pharaoh. And there are 5 movements. I believe it's 5 movements in this entire series, and every movement has a summation, because the goal of this study is for you to be able to tell the entire story of the Bible. And so it breaks it down into, let me make sure I had that right. Yes, 5 segments. And the first segment is the story of the garden. The second is the story of Israel. The third is the story of Jesus. The fourth is the story of the church. And the fifth is the story of the new garden. And so we're talking on this lesson on the story of the garden, and that is Genesis chapters 1 through 11. And I want to actually go through that, because I'm going to go through each arc or story of the Bible so that we will have a clear understanding of it. And so I'm going to pull that up. And so I want you to be keeping these in mind as we go through this entire series, so that when people come to you and they ask you what the Bible is about, that there is at least a simple phrase, a simple few sentences that you can remember and retain to tell them what the story of the Bible is about. And so it says, in the upper story, God creates the lower story. His vision is to come down and be with us in a beautiful garden. The first 2 people reject God's vision and are escorted from paradise. Their decision introduces sin into the human race and keeps us from community with God. At this moment, God gives a promise and launches a plan to get us back. The rest of the Bible is God's story of how he kept that promise and made it possible for us to enter into a loving relationship with him. So I want us to keep that in mind as we go through the rest of the teachings. And just a few quick church announcements before we jump off on tonight. I want to let you know we've been doing 7 weeks of savings for our Black Friday. And tonight is the last night to grab those social media graphics. I did an entire social media graphics pack. It's 25 graphics that you can use for your social media, Facebook and Instagram. There are scriptures, some of the top scriptures that we all quote. And so you can get that graphic pack for only $10. Tonight is the last night to grab that. And on tomorrow, there will be our final in our 7 weeks of saving. And so that's going to be our Black Friday sale that will officially start tomorrow and go through Cyber Monday. And so you'll have from tomorrow morning until Monday night to grab it. And anything on the site is 35% off. So any of the items that you want to get that you may have saw us, do sales on and you missed the sale, it wasn't payday that week or whatever, you can grab 35% off of that. And I'll drop the link in the comments. It's bit.ly/Becoming Engaged Enterprises. Let me see. And you can grab that. Hey, Lady Tasha. Hey, Lady Ann. Hey, Lady Valerie. Thank you all so much for joining. So I'm glad you all enjoyed. So be sure to grab that special starts tomorrow. And if this has been a blessing to you, there are always ways that you can support this ministry so that we can continue to bring really good word, really good Bible studies to you. There's the Cash App that you can support us through. There's also the QR code for my tech savvy people that just want to point your phone to that and bless through the vehicle of Cash App. And for those of you, I heard some people that was like, I don't do Cash App. I don't want that. So for those of you who don't do Cash App and you want to do PayPal, I can get donations through PayPal as well. PayPal.me/Cheryl Thomas Speaks. So you can also give that way. And I'm looking to do some more payment options that'll be available to you, like Venmo and Zelle, just so any way that you want to support the ministry, that you will be able to do that. Again, you all, thank you so much for always joining in, for always sharing and passing along this. I do love you, and I do not take it for granted for you all taking out time in your busy schedules to come and dive into the word of the Lord with me. I love you all with the love of the Lord, and I will see you all next Tuesday. Good night. The perfect journal for dreamers has now arrived. It has awesome encouragement to build your faith, great motivation for the woman ready to make moves, and weekly affirmations and prayers for women going places. This is the 52-week prayer and affirmation devotional that every woman of faith needs. Simply go to www.cherylthomas.co/believe and grab your copy today.